Do you think it's safe to ask them?
Hear me, all you hosts gathered here.
Kill everyone now. Condone first-degree murder. Advocate cannibalism. Eat shit.
Well, I think we're about ready. Quiet, everyone.
Filth are my politics. Filth is my life.
From the whispers of the damned, deep within the bowels of hell. Welcome to Astro Radio Z.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of your favorite fucking podcast in your miserable ass world called Earth, Astro Radio Z. Tonight is a very special episode for yours truly because it's been a long time coming that I've had these two gentlemen on. I mean, sure, it's special. We're going to be talking about Subspecies 5, a movie 25 years in the fucking making. But what's even more special and more sweet are my sweet boys that are coming on the podcast tonight. Going to be bringing on Mr. Scott Davis and Mr. Daniel Enfield. You sons of bitches. Welcome back to Astro Radio Z.
Good to be here.
It feels great. It's like coming back home.
Yeah. Well, Dan, I want to say the last time I had you on might have been the last Subspecies episode where we went through all 4 or all 5 or all 6 Subspecies movies. Wait, how many are there now?
There's 5 and Vampire Journals are 6. I can't. Was it that or American Ninja? I forget what the last Astro Radio Z was. But yeah, it's been far too long.
It's been far too long, and the funny thing is, you can't even. That Subspecies episode isn't even out there anymore. Nobody can find it. The only place
for it.
Ask me where's the only place you can find it, Dan.
Where's the only place that you can find it, Dan?
Thank you for asking me that. It's on the Astro Radio Z Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/Astro Radio Z.
That was great. That was awesome. God damn. We need to have a music cue like Pee-wee's Playhouse, but for every time Derek shills the Patreon.
Yeah, exactly.
My chair's going to start dancing around.
So, anyways, obviously tonight we're going to be talking about Subspecies 5, Blood Rise, and both of the gentlemen that are on the show tonight, I've known them for a really long time. Scott, I've known you the longest, and you've been probably the biggest outside of me, next to Dan. I mean, Dan might trump us all. Biggest Full Moon Pictures mark I've known.
I am a sucker. I am an easy date. I mean, it's like just as bad as that. Like Angelique and I going to see the Godzilla King of the Monsters. It's like you want to go watch a movie where like big monsters are beating each other up for 2.5 hours and eat a hot dog and some popcorn.
Yes.
And Angelique was like, "I come from this marriage proposal." I'm the same way with Full Moon. You want to just watch some Full Moon movies and sit here, just drink some coffee, watch some Full Moon? It's like, yeah, okay. I mean, you don't even have to tell me what the movie is. Let's just watch.
And suddenly she produces a blanket that goes over top of your lap, and you're like, "Whoa, what? Wait! Let's slow this down a little bit."
Yep, I am a Full Moon mark. I am real simple. So you could anybody who hasn't heard those episodes, then just go ahead and be prepared for it.
And how do we listen to those episodes?
Oh God, do it. How do we listen to those episodes, Dan?
Oh, we listen to them on Astro Radio Z. Okay, I swear I won't do that, but it's for a joke at this point now. If we're going to do it, we might as well fucking go for it, right?
Hey, dude, go all out. Dude.
Get that money, man.
When has Charles Band ever not tried to sell something, dude?
Oh, yeah.
Go for it. Okay, make Charlie proud.
Charlie Band is a half filmmaker, half wheeler dealer, and I think he would gladly own that. And yet, when I finally got to meet him at a convention about 5 years ago, it was like meeting the Dalai Lama. You know, it was like that kind because Charles Band has been like such an important part of my life like ever since
Yeah.
ever since I was like 6 or 7 years old. I even told him, I says, I've been ever since I first saw Laser Blast when it was a fairly new movie.
Right.
I've been a big fan, and so it's I think Dan might have greater knowledge just simply because he's able to like dig deeper in even with his music and everything like that. But yeah, I'm totally in the Charles Band camp too. So
I've heard mixed stories. I haven't met him myself. I haven't gone up.
I know there are mixed stories. Very mixed.
I've been at and I've seen the traveling road show that he was putting around about 10 years ago. And I think it's been documented on past episodes of Astro Radio Z, our thoughts on how skeezy that road show was.
There's actually a thing on the channel now that'll actually show you the road show. And I was watching it just like about a month ago, and I thought, how'd they get away with that?
I can't imagine.
That's not something that you could do today. That you'd have to sign so many releases and everything.
Your comedic timing on that was perfect. Expressions and everything, because I saw it was like you were actually watching it, and I just saw the pause.
Yeah, well, I mean,
get away with that.
Yeah, that's what it was. It was what it was. I was sitting there with the cats. We were just looking at each other. She's nude.
Yeah. I saw it once at Cinema Wasteland, and I believe at a Days of the Dead in Chicago. I happened upon it, and obviously I've heard stories, by people that I've met around the way, and of course, Astro Radio Z originator fucking Corey J. Udler had a few tales to tell, and from his days of actually running the merch booth for Full Moon Pictures. But I won't tell those tales here on Astro Radio Z. You guys are going to have to figure those out on your own. Go talk to some hucksters around back.
Sordid tales.
Sordid tales that I am
sordid,
not about.
Sweaty tales.
Sweaty is right. So, anyways, let's get to the reason we're here, gents. Let's talk about Subspecies 5. But first things first, let's watch the trailer.
Out of the dark ages, a child was born. Crusaders stole the cursed child. The creature grew to manhood. He was trained in the arts of war, sworn into a secret sect.
We have come for the Bloodstone.
What is your name, Crusader? Radu.
It is here.
Ladislas is your father.
Spare my child.
Don't listen to the lies of demons.
All that is can be yours.
She spoke the truth, Maros.
She's a vampire.
She is becoming one.
You must never leave me, Radu. Unto eternity. What's happened?
I'm defiant.
You are not our master.
You have so much to learn. Life or death. The choice is yours.
You gotta fucking love it, boys.
That is how you make a trailer.
Dude,
That's
if
a
I had
badass
seen
trailer.
that trailer before I saw the actual movie, I would have been so fucking jacked. I mean, Jesus Christ, that's a great fucking trailer for this movie. Now, having said that, we've been waiting an awful fucking long time to see this goddamn movie. Before we get to our general opinions of what happens in this movie, Scotty D, do you want to tell the listeners of Astro Radio Z what Blood Rise is about, Subspecies 5? Do you think you could summarize it?
I'll try.
Okay, good luck.
I'll try. I have notes, but they're not in any kind of order, so I'm going to wing
Well, you
it.
did say you made 20 pages of notes for this episode. I mean,
I make notes for everything. I'm very insecure. Subspecies 5. Basically, subspecies 1 through 4 had this villain Radu Vladislas, this vampire, and his trying to get this his fledgling Michelle, the vampire, trying to get her under his spell and everything like that. That's all over. And basically, Subspecies 5 Blood Rise is even though it's filmed 25 years later, is the prequel to all of this. And it shows of how Radu was born of this unholy union of like witches and vampires, and how he was kidnapped by the Catholic Church, the Knights Templar, or what I think they call them Knights of the Day or something weird like that. And it's like he gets kidnapped by them, taken into but through happenstance and prophecy, he gets put back. He finds himself at his father's castle, and that's when he learns of his true lineage. And he takes this woman and her child into his protection. Still saying that, you know what, maybe I'm not with the church anymore. I don't know, but I can't let these people perish. These people who are victimized by this vampire. And it turns out to be a big double cross and triple cross, and you find out it's basically the origins of how Radu became this fearsome vampire, and how he went from becoming this person who was very much manipulated into this master manipulator, more or less.
That's a pretty good summary.
No, you nailed it. You absolutely nailed it. This movie was confusing in a lot of ways for me. First things first, Anders Hove is still at the helm, like the lead vampire. He comes back playing Radu. He looks like an elderly old man. Now, let's just get this out of the way. In Subspecies 1, which this is supposed to take place before, Subspecies 1, he's clearly a younger man. Because I watched Subspecies right after this, because I was like, okay. I got to see, because I thought by the end of the movie, this thing lined up pretty well. But when you do that, which I would not recommend to anybody do this, when you watch part 5 and then go into part 1, is the chronology would tell you to do so.
Don't do that.
It like part 5 shits the bed, because Radu, like, they filmed this way too late. They should have done this movie like right after. This should have been part 2. They should have made this right after part 1 to make this even remotely believable, because in no way does Anders Hove fit with the rest of how he looks and how he's presented in the rest of the films until the back end of the movie. Yeah. The back end of the movie, perhaps my favorite Radu of the entire series. But Scott, what do you think?
I get your point, and I respect the point, and here's why I didn't mind it quite as much. One, I'm kind of looking into like the logistics of it, about that they couldn't get this made until now, and So you do have things later, like for instance, when Full Moon did the sequel to Sorority Babes a couple of years back, and they're people are obviously much older and everything. Yeah. There's that, so you take that with a grain of salt. Also, Radu is deformed, right, as a vampire, and we see him as the human. So by saying that he already was like pretty craggly looking and everything like that. And then like over time, his original features came back, which was this deformed image of a vampire and everything like that. Viewers, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you've probably seen pictures of him, or you've seen pictures of people who have ripped off his look over the last 30 years.
Very iconic.
A very iconic look in like goth vampire lore. And he looks very bumpy, very
I'm sorry to interject. Don't worry, Devil Luna. That's the one I told you we would watch this October. So we got someone in the chat who hasn't seen them. And I just told her like last week, I was like, "Oh, we're watching these this October."
Oh, you'll like them.
And I'm sorry to derail you.
No, it's fine. So since his appearance was never human and was never aging was never really a thing. It was always like a supernatural thing. So I have no problem with him looking older and then turning into a vampire that looked slightly younger, because of the makeup and everything. And they even, they comment on it behind the scenes. It's like, look at this. We don't even have him in makeup half the thing. He just looks scary as is. They said, is what Ted would say, is what Ted Nicolau, the director, would say to him. He says he just looks scary enough without the makeup. So
this is true. And I think you bring up a good point, Scott, that it could be, kind of washed away if you discuss it as, well, over time, since he had the Bloodstone, he actually became younger and more
I think
powerful.
That was in my head canon. I mean, that's kind of what it was. It was, they're older. It is what it is. How do you use? You can't have Subspecies without Denise Duff. You can't have Subspecies without Honest Hova. You got to have them. There's no way around it. So how do you use it? I thought was really clever how he did that.
Yeah, and also we'll probably get to it, but also this film, not a whole lot, but actually less than I was expecting, but it does retcon a few things from the original Subspecies, most significantly the pre-credit sequence or whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. We might as well, I figured we'd get the continuity issues out of the way so we could actually speak about the film afterwards, but I agree with you. Yeah. There is a lot that they did that was right, but there's just like two things that doesn't line up with Subspecies 1 immediately. And I noticed this. I mean, Dan and I have I don't remember, Scott, were you on the Subspecies episode when we did that?
I want to say I was, but I honestly can't remember. I want to say I was.
Yeah, I believe it was you too. But there was if you remember Subspecies 1, you have Angus Scrimm as his dad.
Yeah.
Holding the Bloodstone over his head, basically saying, you will never get this. You aren't ready for the power that is bestowed to you that you will get from the blood of the saints. Yet in Subspecies 5, he's drinking from that motherfucker constantly.
Oh yeah, he's like a baby with a bottle. Yeah, just like
so they fucked that thing up. And they also changed the look of Radu's dad in Subspecies 5 to much more of a Nosferatu look.
I like this, with all due respect to Angus Scrimm, who rest in power, sir. I actually liked this vampire better. And you know who that was?
Yeah, Kevin Spurtis, man.
That was Kevin Spurtis, the male protagonist from 2 and 3.
It was
which I did not know until I saw the movie again. Because I watched the film when it premiered a few months ago, and then I watched it again for the show. And until then, I didn't know that was going to happen. My camera just went out of focus, but it'll go back.
It's all the machismo. It's the hair.
It's the hair. It's the hair. It's the wild gesticulations. It's the
camera's just like, dude, is that a mullet under that hat? Holy shit.
This is the perfect opportunity for me to play the porno music underneath, because it's about to get steamy in here. Listeners of the audio podcast won't understand what the fuck's going on right now. But Scott got really, really steamy.
That was me. Like, oh shit, here we go. I've seen how these movies start. Where the hell is it? I need an adult.
So
anyways, Dan,
where
continuity wise, did anything really stick out or bother you about this movie before we really get into the nuts and bolts of this movie?
I mean, that's gonna be like, if I have my pros and my cons, that was one of the cons, is that his interaction with the king and we'll get to that eventually, but his interaction with the king and how he resolves that apparent thread at the end of 5 does not line up with part 1, unless you just use your imagination, be like, oh, well, I guess he had many adventures since then and stuff. And then, we pick back up with part 1 and, things kind of come full circle. That was kind of sort of my own. Everything else, like continuity wise, everything else really lines up if you're a dumb Full Moon, like diehard nerd fan.
Yeah.
Like if you're a Subspecies fan, because when you were talking about like the continuity issues with part 5, that's really the only one, because the movie is pure blatant fan service. Really, that's it. And so that's why it's kind of unfair to get a full, like, gentleman's review of this. You're going to need Scott for that, because this movie was so cleverly written by Ted Nicolau as a pure fan service film that I was blind. Like the first 3 times I watched it, it's still, you can see little hearts floating out of my head whenever I'm watching it. I just watched it twice again today without the commentary, and then I watched it with the commentary. And so really my only other reasonable con against that movie is I wish Ted would quit, like, he just shit talking the movie. Like, he's sitting there saying, yeah, and you'll notice this scene, this doesn't really look that good because we did this and that. And I'm like, dude, it's gold. I get it. I appreciate the humility, but man, stop bad-mouthing this shit. This thing is awesome. The fact that he accomplished it, any movie is a miracle to get accomplished.
Well, especially one that 25 years in the making.
With the same actors.
I give them a lot of credit, because let's face it, Full Moon and Charles Band in general, over the years, he's been making movies since the 70s, and it's probably not going to happen that they're going to get the cash flow that they had ever again, like they had when they were being partially funded by Paramount. Right. And they've been trying for years, for decades, ever since. And they've done some things that I'm like, oh, that's really chintzy and cheap. Like, they've done lots of compilations. They've done lots of edited videos. They've done lots of retitling. I give them a lot. Ted Nicolau, Charlie Band, I give them a lot of credit for not just doing something super cheap on a green screen and actually waiting until they could do it some justice. Because I guess this was actually, I imagine it's not the same script, but I guess this was written way back like in 2000.
Yeah, it was written an old one that came back, right?
It was written.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Scott.
No. You, please.
We had Ted on our Monsters, Madness, and Magic podcast, and we had Charles Band actually there, and I was trying to give him a digital hand job. That didn't work out too well. Believe it or not, he only tried to sell us like one thing that whole show. Anyway, but, I
would be disappointed if he didn't.
we got Ted on, and I hit Ted with the hard hitting questions, like where is Subspecies 4 on Blu-ray. And then I was asking about the script, and yeah, you are correct. It has been floating around for like 20 some odd years. If I recall correctly, he actually had a lot of it written after part 4. But what he wanted to do with it, he even knew back then, I can't even do it. And like him, he's saying like, you can make chicken salad out of chicken shit. But even he knew he would not really be able to do what he wanted to do back then. And so it just, kind of had to languish and wait. And he was just hoping everybody would still be alive and able to do it by the time they were able to do it.
I give them a lot of credit for being patient and counting on the fans to be patient and to do that, because it's not something Full Moon has always done. Let's be honest. And but they recognized that this particular franchise was different than, say, like Evil Bong or something where, we can just do like one of these every year or two, and the same fans will appreciate it even if it takes place in a room. This was something that was bigger and had a lot more behind it, and I really give them a lot of credit. I would not. It's more than you would expect from most Hollywood filmmakers, much less exploitation filmmakers who have not always followed this advice. So I gave them a lot of credit for really putting together such a wonderful love letter like this. I'm going to tell you right now, I love this movie. I love this movie.
That's great. It's great to hear. Dan, what did you think of this movie?
Dude, I freaking loved it. Like I said, it just, when I first watched it, it was you could just see hearts floating out of my head because
it's like a TikTok video happening in real time for Dan.
I was preparing for it to come out, so I rewatched all of them, which is no big deal. Like Vampire Journals, I believe is probably my favorite vampire movie. So of course that's going to be in rotation. But I mean, I watched the whole saga leading up to it so that it was fresh in my mind, and then I popped part 5 in. When I say pop it in, I got a screener for it because I have no morals and no shame, and apparently digital hand jobs do work sometimes. But I'll
keep that in the back of my mind, Dan. I'll keep that in mind for a future episode.
I sat and watched it, and I loved it. When it was over, I didn't really remember a lot of it, but they crammed a shit ton of movie in this hour and 20 minutes. There is a hell of a lot of movie in this thing. The script momentum, the pacing, like it's honestly, if you're a script writer, I really think you ought to go in and dissect pacing in a film and how well this movie moves, because so much happens in that little bit of time. But anyway, after I watched it, I was in love and immediately turned it on and watched it again because I did feel like I might have missed something because of the, maybe some continuity issues or whatever. But I mean, I've total mark for it. I fell head over heels in love with it. I wanted to hear him say Stefan again, because he sounds like he's been walking with he who walks behind the rose, like looking for Malachi while gargling some razor. You're just like, come to me, my pretty. I got bloodstone, and this was.
Oh my God, he is so wonderful. I'm so glad to hear you guys loved this movie. And this was a hard one on first view for me. I also watched it a couple times because Subspecies, and I've said this in the past on the show, is my favorite full moon franchise by far. It always has been from the first movie, even through that shoddy fourth movie. I've unapologetically loved this thing, and all of it literally hinges upon Ted Nicolaou's sensibilities as a director. The locale, that it's shot in Romania is just beautiful. Most of this series.
I'm sorry to interrupt. This was actually Serbia.
Yeah.
Was this Serbia?
Yeah.
That messed me up too.
I want to make a point. I just, because the cast and the crew and stuff, and talking with Ted about this, and I wanted to make a point to shout it out the reviews I wrote and stuff. Yes, this was filmed on location in Serbia with a majority of Serbian actors. And so we have to give them credit, because just like they did in Romania, though. So, that whole guerrilla style filmmaking, fly by the seat of your pants, just like they did in Romania, they were also doing in Serbia. But that also, if you like the locations that they used, even some from when they would, filmmakers, there's fancy terms used like comp effects and matting or whatnot and shit. They would use drone flybys and record like castle flyovers and stuff from Serbia, and then they would actually piece it together. But I'm sorry to interrupt you, Derek.
No, absolutely. I'm glad you talked about that, because as we all know, the first series before this film was mostly, the big thing about it that gave it production value was that locale where they shot at. And that really helps this movie out. The first time I watched this movie, I got to be honest, that first half hour is tough. That first half hour was really tough because the movie looks really cheap in that first half hour. Outside of the cave sequences where we're introduced to his dad and the mother that we finally get to meet in a younger state.
Mummy.
Oh my God. That's one of my favorite characters of the entire series.
Mine too.
And they brought her back. But then as the movie moves along and he finally turns into Radu and it ramps up and things start really coming together. They bring in Stefan from the Vampire Diary or journals, and then it just
Ash.
That's right. That's
Ash,
right.
the music lover.
Ash.
This is his This like tells where he came from, who was one of the most mysterious characters in that universe that I love.
Yes.
And so we get to see like where he came from. Oh yeah, I'm with you.
I loved that shit, and by the end of the movie, it won me over. It absolutely won me over. I had to set aside the fact that there was some really shitty comp effects, as you had like the most egregious one, and I gotta hear what you guys have to say about this, and I'm getting real nitpicky about this shit.
Okay.
Every time they showed the mountainside cave where the light shining from the cave, that is the shittiest looking fucking comp effect I've perhaps seen in a movie in a long time. And I run a podcast called Worst Movies Ever. That fucking hillside comp where they literally just like did a Photoshop of like some like little tiny sphere of it looked like a fucking pizza hanging out on the side that's supposed to be where the cave is. Oh god, every time they showed it, and they showed it at least 4 times in this movie, and I just, oh god, make it go away. It looks so fucking shitty.
I guess I'm very forgiving when it comes to things like this in a production like this, but I agree. I enjoyed this a lot more the second time I watched it than the first time. The first time I was like, okay, and it was kind of, I would agree that I didn't hate it, but I didn't dislike the opening, but there was an adjustment period. I will tell you that there's like an adjustment period to say like, oh, okay, this is the world we're going to be in now.
Right.
And, I had to get comfortable in that world until I could really enjoy it. And then by the time I watched it again, like 2 nights ago, I said, okay, it's been a couple months. I'm going to watch this again and just the show. And I'm make sure I remember everything. And I'm watching it. I'm like, geez, this is really good, because a lot of the stuff that really bugged me the first time didn't bug me as much. For instance, one of the things that they do with special effects that they didn't do too much in the originals, or at least didn't even show this power very much, was fast-moving vampires.
How they
can just go zip and come right up on you. I remember the first time I saw that, I said, "Oh, that looks cheesy.
Yeah, that
looks really bad." And I was watching it on my big screen TV, which is it's not huge. It's like a 50 TV. It's decent size. And
Scott with his magnifying glass taking notes. Be like, yeah, that's all pixel out of place.
Look at this. I need magnifying glass for everything. Okay.
Sorry.
And then I'm watching it again on the monitor. I'm like, and I'm about to type in the links. Oh yes, the fast moving things that don't look so. And I'm looking at this. Actually, that doesn't look too bad now. As I'm typing, it really didn't look as it. Once the second time, once I had that that initial shock of getting to know this is where we are 25 years later in terms of production value, in terms of what the story is going to be. I guess I was okay, so basically a lot of the stuff that bugged me the first time around did not bug me the second time around, which doesn't usually happen. If anything, I start to notice and be more critical of things the more I watch something. But this one, I was really able to just kind of go with the flow on the second one, which was really nice.
I loved it. That's just, for me, I guess it's one of those necessity is the mother of invention. But every subspecies, Ted Nicolau introduces, he's got his own style that no other vampire movie has. Any of those subspecies movies, he always introduces something new, something you've never seen, even if it's the little subspecies puppets or just the copious gore from the first one. Then by the second one, where we introduce, I'd call it the Shadow Walk, which is really my only nitpick with part 5. But like you talked, Scott, about the quick movement, man, when it shows Radu's mother, when Mummy, the way she interacts with people, and that actress, perfect. The way she handled that, so alluring and yet grotesque and menacing at the same time. But every time she moves, she's on one side of his shoulder, and then she's over here, and she's back over here.
I noted that.
Motherfucker, I was like, dude, this is finally like this is more style. So it was again, it's kind of like, hey, pay attention over here. Let's not pay attention to the compliment on the cave side of the rock.
Or the latex hanging off of her face. And I agree. I think a lot of what, played into the movie's hand was the fact that it did already have this pre-established lore to it. So bringing in this movie and going back in time to see more powerful vampires that were weak in the original series was such a treat. And they did get good actors outside of, let's just put this out there, the child actor in this movie is horrible. Let's just be fucking really honest. Terrible.
Listen to the commentary. He talks about it a little bit, how they were just scouring everywhere to try to find an actor. And sometimes he would either forget the lines or just the timing wasn't quite there. But, it's a kid. What are you going to do kind of thing?
They're kind of stuck with it, right?
Some Serbian child who can speak English.
No wonder Radu stakes him in the second one. Remember part 5.
Yeah, you remember that movie that hasn't happened yet, but did happen?
That will happen eventually.
Yeah, exactly. So, I agree with you. And even I do share your frustration that they didn't have the shadow wall really in this movie.
They changed it, and that's the one that grieves me the most.
Because it's the easiest thing to do.
And it was so cool.
It was a great practical effect. And they kind of just do the shadow and dissipation thing, which still looks decent. But it looks way cooler when they did it in like part 2, where you could all of a sudden just see like the person disappears, and then you just see the shadow get bigger along the side of a castle and stuff.
Yeah,
that was just incredibly an incredibly powerful image.
It's easy and yet so atmospheric, and just that is like probably, honestly, the more and more I talk about it, that's probably like my biggest grievance of the whole thing, because that stylish shadow walk was so omnipresent. Even in the first one, when Radu stretches his hand across the wall, like he's up in the loft and he stretches his hand, that's mimicking the Nosferatu film, and he's doing that. And then by the second one, they're just melting into shadows so much so that it becomes part of the mythos.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, I get it, just trying to add more to it, more flourish, but sometimes less is more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You gotta wonder if some of it was because of the fact, obviously, the budget of this thing is way smaller than any of the previous movies. And I have a feeling that maybe it was a stylistic choice, but also a practical choice, because these sets weren't, this movie doesn't really take place in the kind of grand locale that the rest of the series took place in.
You're right.
You see the budget every scene in this movie.
Yeah.
So they had to start making some decisions with what was being shown and what they could do. Because I believe please tell me if I'm wrong, Dan, this was actually shot. It started production right before COVID hit.
Yes. Yeah, and they were, whether they had actually done any principal photography, I'm not sure, but like everything, wheels were kicking into motion, gears were grinding, and I mean, it was like Snoopy driving the car. They were ready to go, and then the Kung Flu hit, and done. It's over, and couldn't do anything until a couple years later. The thing was actually shot in 17 days.
Well, you can kind of see that. There isn't, and that's not really like a slam against the movie. I'm not
slamming it. It's just like, yeah, you can tell.
Well, there's not a lot of locales to this movie. There's maybe like 4 different locales that are featured in this movie at most.
It's less. That's less time, I think, than the original, which I think they said took 4 weeks, which is a long schedule for a film of that budget. But also it's you see just it's rock sides, lots of mountains, lots of woods, lots of caverns and catacombs and stuff. And what was really cool about it is that because of, I guess, space, because of the confined spaces and everything. When they go inside like the dungeons and the catacombs and anything like that, the sets are beautiful and they're all lit by torches and candles.
Yep. I love
that.
Lit.
There's no light. There's no studio lighting. It's all natural light.
It felt
and
so
it looks
genuine
amazing.
to what it should be, right?
Yeah. What's that? Hold on. I gotta make sure I get this guy's name down. Vladimir Illich, or Illich. The cinematographer, because that was some really impressive work doing those scenes, doing the natural lighting in those scenes and having them look that good. There's really
no way. Yeah, there's no way back in the day with the technology that was present they could have pulled off this kind of thing. Film cameras need a lot of light.
Right.
Digital cameras now can work. The ISO can really get that thing to where you can have barely any light at all and really get a beautiful image without it turning into a grainy fucking mess. So they got to be so thankful, and somebody on set was really thinking in the pre-production of this thing to say, hey, let's just use torches and real light to light this, because that's what it would have been like back in the day. That was a wonderful decision.
Ted mentions that in the commentary. He talks about that was completely up to the cinematographer, that they had discussed it, and Nicola didn't think they'd be able to do it. He's like, we got to have some leading light or something on there because you're not going to see it. But the cinematographer was like, nah, trust me, let's do that. So Nicola got a couple of dailies, and he was like, yeah, this is cool. So then they ended up mimicking that throughout a lot of the film. He said they would have backing light, a key light, and they would have like a black flag that they would kind of flit around just to also help mimic that torch light, natural light that they were getting in the film. It's really cool.
Well, it makes the sets, it makes it look more sumptuous than it would. What doesn't it? I mean, because you got like these, these rock faces and these they're outside and everything, and it's just very ordinary, kind of mysterious with the fog and everything, kind of isolated. But then you go into these caves and everything, and it's like this complete other world where they've had to make this tiny little society for themselves, or this tiny little home for themselves. And you see how they have like this, basically mocking the opulence that they tried to experience in life, but in this underground cavern of death and everything. And the way they make this look is really impressive. I was just looking at the sets like, I don't expect that from a no-budget movie.
Especially Full Moon now, because since the Deadly 10 came out and they announced that, it's almost 5 years at this point.
They never got to do. They never got to really do the Deadly 10.
Like Deadly 4.
Yeah, and most of them got canceled because of COVID, and some of them they picked up production on again, some of them they didn't. They wanted to do them, they didn't get a chance.
Well, I'm glad they followed through. I mean, there have been a couple out of that cycle, this new cycle of Full Moon movies that came out. There have been a couple good ones. I think Brink's fucking movie, the Sorority Babes and the Slimeball Bolorama 2, was very entertaining.
I enjoyed it. I liked that.
Even though it looked cheap as fuck.
It was fun. But it's a title. Did you expect anything else?
No.
Right.
No, I've seen the 1.5 million Evil Bong movies that he's churned out, during that time. So I
like those movies. I like those movies now.
Those movies are bullshit. So I'm just a if you listeners, if you haven't gotten the idea yet, I'm a crotchety old fuck who complains about fucking everything. I'm the guy on the porch while these guys are the youngsters coming in saying, "Oh, I love this stuff."
Have you seen Subspecies 5? Get off my porch.
Give me more Subspecies 5, please.
That is what I'm known for these days, my sunny disposition. Yes.
Well, let's turn the conversation from the the production design, which I think unanimously we all enjoyed it, to some of the characters and the actors, especially the legacy cast, because I think out of everything that you want to talk about that legacy cast that came back in here of Anders Hoven, Denise Duff. How did you guys feel about Denise Duff, the way they brought her in, how she was in this movie, and how they tied her in to the rest of the series? Dan, what do you think?
She's back. No, I really appreciated it. If to critique something, I mean, they Ravenlofted it. But then again, so did Francis Ford Coppola when he did Dracula. If it's the whole Ravenloft idea, which is actually more of a story, the storyline itself that I don't want to spoil it, but they did a Ravenloft, and so they got Denise Duff to play somebody else in a previous time. But I mean, I'm glad they did because she's older. She's aged like a wonderful bottle of wine.
She's beautiful.
I mean, my God. So she's just on there, and I start stuttering, just trying to think about because we were trying to get her on the podcast. Dude, I was just going to stare at the floor, just not even be able to talk proper. No, I like what they did.
It's like, hi.
I like what they did.
Don't stand up, Dan. Don't stand up.
When Mateo, when you see the laptop, I appreciated them bringing her in because she actually she did. She played a whole nother character, and in essence, she plays a bad guy. So this is no spoiler because you figure that out pretty quick on. So she actually gets to play an antagonist. So roles are reversed because we've spent the first 4 movies in this series of Radu chasing Michelle. Radu and Michelle. Come here, my pretty. Come here, play Stone and Michelle. No, Radu, my fleshing. Four movies, we get nothing but that. This time, it's switched around. And so now we have Radu going, the whole movie, and she's like, hi, you're my savior. And he's like, get away from me. I don't like it. I had the Bloodstone now. Look who's got the Bloodstone now. I mean, that's it. It's great for her character because we actually got to see more of her acting chops because she does play a really cool customer. And I mean, I appreciated just seeing her. It warmed the heart. When I saw Honest Hova, when he walks up and he looks like he's decrepit, he's like he chose the wrong grail, but it's him. He's there with his sword, and he's like, let's go into the castle. I was like, it's him. It's him, right?
Ian's just marking the fuck out.
That's it. And then whenever we hear, like, he says there's other people in this castle, and then they go and you actually see her. And at first it was like, Michelle? But nope, it's not. It's someone else, but it's Denise Duff. And I was like, it's her. It's her. She's bad. It's her. And I'm like, Scott, I didn't realize that was Kevin Smirtis at first. Like the dude playing Vladislav. Yeah. I didn't know that was him until later. I was like, oh my God, it was him. It was Mel. It was Mel, y'all. It was Mel. By that point, all was worn off. But yeah, I was so happy to see her in a role and own it. Because again, you ain't got Subspecies if you don't have those two. It has become that. That is the fulcrum of this movie. And so even if they're not exactly playing the same roles and they actually get switched around a little bit, I loved it.
But it does play into the fact that these characters and the idea of fate and curses, because then these cycles just keep repeating themselves.
Yeah,
that, like the idea, I believe, of bringing her in and having her be a different character, because then she's resurrected as another person later on, and then the romance can start again.
That's the story of Ravenloft in Dungeons and Dragons. That's the whole thing, is that Count Strahd von Zarovich, the chick that his brother's going to marry and be banging, he wants her, so he plots to kill his brother. And then whenever the chick finds out, she throws herself off the railing, and so he can't have it. Well, he was so consumed with anger that he pledged his soul to the dark powers and whatever and became a vampire. Well, part of the curse is that Tatiana, I think her name is, she gets reborn every 1,000 years. And that's why he scours his village looking for the Tatiana so that he can have her finally. But again, the cycle of the curse. They repeated it. That was Francis Ford Coppola totally janked it. He ganked it for his Dracula movie, which is good. But even the people, P&L Rod even says, yeah, they totally ripped that off from the Ravenloft story. And like Dracula Untold kind of sort of did it. I mean, I'm not anything bad, but that's you talk about the cycle of the thing. That's what I meant when I said they Ravenlofted it.
Sure.
It makes the series a lot. It somehow makes the series a little richer because, like you say, Derek, it adds this curse to the whole thing. It really explains why Radu is so obsessed with Michelle, Why he's let other fledglings go? Why can't he let this one go? You know, and he.
Too.
Yeah, and he gets it's this constant thing, and I really think I just thought this film was so inventive for the way it took. It basically acknowledged that everybody's favorite Subspecies movies are the second and the third ones are which were filmed back to back. You know, or 2 and 3 are like the ones everybody goes to, and by taking the 3 principles of those movies, basically. Anders Hove, Denise Duff, and Kevin Sperdos, and putting them in completely different roles. So you got the fan service, sure, but it also at the same time completely subverts expectations. Even Anders Hove, who is playing ostensibly the same role, he's playing it from the point of humanity onwards, so you see the character develop. So at the beginning especially, these are all completely different characters, and you can see them become the characters that would later curse them in the series. I don't know if that psychological effect was intentional. That might be a lot to pin on a movie.
But a lot of it was just serendipitous.
But it works. It really works.
Absolutely does. It absolutely does, and it's what won me over. Ultimately, the trajectory of especially the Anders Hove character and where he comes from in the beginning, which was a little confusing because it's a weird kind of like how they decided to go about making his character human after he was born like a halfling, and then they chop his fingers and his ears and all this stuff, and then the church takes him in and he becomes a Templar, and then eventually gets bitten by Denise Duff, sorry, I'm mixing things up, and then becomes a vampire after that. And as his character goes on, he literally carries this movie on his back. This entire movie, to me, is hinged on his performance in that character that goes from a God-fearing, really strong, devout Christian or Catholic to this absolute feral vampire. The kind of feral vampire that was in the rest of the series, where when he's biting on somebody, he comes up, blood is just pouring out of his mouth, and he has this elongated mouth with these teeth, and he's just drooling, and he just looks like this ravenous, like completely unhinged old man vampire. And it is, like I said before, I think it's the best Radu of the entire series. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Oh, I don't know about that.
I wouldn't say it's my favorite. I see why you would say that, and I mean that's perfectly fine. It's not necessarily my favorite, but I mean I can see where he was going with it. There's a throwaway line he does again, freaking Nicola with his throwaway lines that just add so much depth to his stories, to his 80-minute movie. But whenever he mentions over time, after Ash and Ariel have left, and he says, and over time he wandered, and then he ended up seeking them out again, and he knew where to find them, to find the music. But he said over the time that has passed, his cursed bloodline had started to misshapen him again. And so that's when you first notice that he has really started to change, is at night. He's got the cowl over, and he's back. It's like it's the Radu that you remember, that they did really well with it. But you were talking about, Derek, with him looking like a feral monster in the other ones. I appreciate how they did that transition. And then just him mentioning because of his cursed bloodline. Well, then you're like, oh, that's right. He is the offspring of the immortal sorceress Circe and Vladislaus, the vampire. And so it's like, ooh, very cool. Okay. And then they even mentioned, like, because Vladislaus has the blood of Nosferatu. And so, again, there's that cursed bloodline that Radu has. So no wonder he's a monster.
Mm-hmm. I think probably my favorite Radu would still probably be from the second one, but there's no doubt this is the most three-dimensional Radu, for sure.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, I mean, it gives a complete arc for the character in a way that we've never seen before. So I'll give you that. So I'll definitely say that, at least.
That's awesome. There was something about that at the
They're
end.
still playing the porn music, by the
Yeah,
way.
it's not going away. The porn music's staying. It's here. It's here to stay. Is it making you too horny? Is that what's going on, Scott?
Not quite. I mean, I appreciate the effort.
I'm in my mid-40s. It takes a lot more these days.
Well, let's see how we've switched over to how does your dick work, chat. How's your boner action happening over there, Dan?
I appreciate the effort, Derek, but I mean, it takes just a little bit more than this MIDI music to get me excited. Not much.
Yeah.
Not much. Let's talk about Denise Duff then again.
Okay, here we go.
Maybe that'll help you out.
No, fantastic performance from her. Really.
Yeah.
Fantastic performance. I thought that I loved seeing her tackle this completely different role, which again starts differently in the movie than where it ends up.
Right.
And without giving too many spoilers and stuff, but it's really, really impressive. I was very happy to see her back in action here.
Yeah. Toward as the movie comes to a close, the movie for fans of, and I think we kind of spoke to this earlier, for fans of the original series, this stops at a point where you're like, oh, could they make another one? Could there be, in between part one and this one, more adventures for Radu and the people? Do you honestly think, guys, that they could, if this does well enough for Full Moon, that they could bring these guys back for one more?
I don't want them to. Let it be over. Do another movie. Make a spin-off. But me personally, it's done. It's over. And I'm good with that. It's totally fine.
Could they? Yes. Should they? No, probably not.
No. Will they? I mean, I'm not going to be surprised.
Will they? Probably.
There is like 20 fucking Evil Bong movies. Let's be honest.
I know. And I'm not going to just put this in Charles Band's lap either. I mean, it's exploitation cinema. I mean, like if you're looking for something that the fans respond to and it makes money, yeah, I mean, you're almost duty bound to make more. But I kind of hope they let it lie. Let at least these characters, rest in peace, no pun intended. I'm not as much of a fan of vampire journals as Dan is. I always thought Ash as a character was a little bit, no offense, but was just a little bit too whiny and boring.
Oh, I know he was, absolutely.
Yeah, I want to steal Ash's lunch money. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, they could probably try to do something else with him, or they could. Well,
you're talking about before Vampire. Okay, I got you.
Yeah, before that, and because we're doing like in between movies here, or they could do something with him, or they could do even something with Stefan when he went to America and was not hanging around with Radu and them. They make some idea about them, so you could do something with that. That would be fine, but I think they did such a great job here, honestly. It's kind of like, it's like, when you're a kid and you like, when I was like, God, I think these movies started coming out when I was these movies started coming out when I was a teenager. And I was just the right age. I was like 15, 16 years old when these things started coming out. I was already a Charles Band fanatic. And so like these things were like just the right age. And of course at that age, like, yes, I want more. And then when you get older and you can see like what happens to a lot of sequels and what happens to a lot of things that get lose their way as they go on. You're just like, oh, don't fast X this one. Yeah, don't do a Fast and Furious Subspecies.
Yeah.
It's about family, Michelle. Like, we're not going to do that.
So would you guys, I think the final thing I want to talk about this movie with you guys is, how would you recommend people watch this? Would you, and Dan, I'm going to ask each of you how you feel about this, and maybe you both have the same sentiment, and I'll save my opinions until last. Where do you think people that are not familiar with the Subspecies series, should they start with part 5 and then watch the original series, or watch it in order that it was released?
In the order it was released. And I mean, it being a new movie, I get it, that's cool and all, but even Nicolau, would agree, because I mean, hell, he wrote the thing, but you won't understand a lot of the context that I'm giving as a complete super fan. You really won't understand this unless you go and watch the originals. But God, it's gonna sound so stupid, but I mean, I'm not like this high-minded cinemaphile or anything like that. But I mean, my son, he's like 18 now. I let him watch Subspecies, the very first one, year before last, and then we watched Subspecies 2 last year. And see, he's a filmmaker and an animator, but he's got a keen eye for these types of movies. So I wanted him to watch it to appreciate the cinematography, and he does. And even he said his favorite's the first one. He says there are some shots that he sees in that first Subspecies movie are so iconic to horror that people have been ripping off those and have no idea how inspirational that movie has actually been, because there is no other vampire like Radu. No other movie has ever done the vampire. The only other one that's done it is Nosferatu. No other actor on screen, because Christopher Lee, well, yeah, he's like Boris Karloff. Well, Boris Karloff, I mean, you know, he did his Boris Karloff thing. And Luke Evans, well, I mean, he's kind of like Christopher Lee, but he did his own thing as an action hero and stuff. Nobody is like Radu. He is always singular. Sorry, I'm rambling on, but I would say watch it in the order that they were released, because I feel like there's honestly, we were talking about serendipity with the way Nicolau is creating his stories and pacing them. So the first one might be a little slow, but it's so atmospheric and moody, it's actually going to bleed in. It's going to marinate those other movies, so that when you do watch them, you're still feeling the atmosphere of the first one. It's also shot on tape. So there's a lot of, kind of like, you're not going to see a lot of the duct tape in the corner because it's shot on tape. VHS just has that wonderful way of hiding things. So I would say do that. By the time you get to Vampire Journals, which came out before Part 4, but actually takes place in tandem and then slightly after Part 5, you might be a little confused, but it's okay. It's just a side story, and it's just a gothic romance thing that it's not about what happens in the movie. It's what's going on in my imagination. Then watch Part 4, breathe, and then watch Part 5. And then remember, Part 5 was filmed 25 years later than it was supposed to. That's my take on it.
I would agree. I have not had a chance to rewatch the first 4 since watching Part 5. I'm looking forward to it because I think that it is going to make it even richer. However, I would agree with Dan. I think that you should start from the beginning with the order they were shot in, then watch it all the way through. And then if you feel like it, then start all over again. But yeah, I think these are great movies. These are all available on Full Moon streaming service. I think Part 5 is also available on Screenbox. And you can check them all out there. And they're all like restored. Well, I don't know if Part 4 is, but the rest of them are pretty much restored to high def.
They lost the master file because I asked Nicolau and I asked Charles Band when we got him on. I told him, I said, I'm gonna hit you with the hardest question I got. And he was like, yeah, go ahead. I could tell he was kind of hesitant, but he also knows I'm a dumb nerd for it. And I was like, where's Subspecies 4 Blu-ray? And,
where are the bathrooms on the Enterprise? Yeah.
and he said, it'll never happen. Unfortunately, you will not get, unless they just, and I told him, I said, well, why don't you just take the DVD and just slap it on a Blu-ray? It never stopped y'all before.
No shit, right?
I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
Trauma's been doing it for fucking years.
Yeah, they're doing better now. Yeah, let's just say that second that Blu-ray that they released of Trancers looks a lot better than the DVD they released of Trancers that was just the Laserdisc.
Yeah, you're right. And I was going to say that Blu-ray of the first Subspecies,
so good.
That is
it's
like
beautiful.
It's
beautiful.
The best transfers I've seen since the Predator transfer on Blu. Have y'all seen that? Holy shit! I'm not even the biggest Predator fan, other than the fact that I'm a guy just a walking hard-on looking for a hole.
It's a requisite, right?
But still, that Blu-ray transfer, woo! That is a hellaciously good transfer. But anyway, the Subspecies one also is just a beautiful Blu-ray transfer, worth every penny if you buy it.
Yeah, I
got them all. Yeah.
I would agree with both of you guys. Do not watch this one first. Save this one. Everything of this series right now is available on Tubi, if I believe. You can watch it for free. Take your time, watch them, enjoy them. If you're into it, you're gonna pound through them in no time flat. I remember last time we did that episode for the Subspecies series. I watched them day after day. Like, it was just like, man, I want to watch the next one.
They're short. The longest one is like 90 minutes, so they're short.
They're so comfortable. Yeah, you are so right, Scott. And it also just the mood. Holy shit! Especially in this horrible Carolina summer. Once that you wake up one morning and you're just like, oh God, here we go. We're gonna start sweating. I got to peel my underwear away from my thigh while I'm walking outside. But then one morning, you open the door and there's no humidity. And it's just a cool breeze. And then right about that time, the clouds start rolling in overhead and we start getting some rainier days. And there is nothing better than popping in Subspecies or popping in some good creepy ass dungeon synth and just sit there and soak up the atmosphere. And I'm telling y'all in the chat, do that. If you haven't seen it, if you need to, wait. I'm sure Charlie and Ted will be just fine with me telling you, just hold off just a little bit until it's time. Pumpkin spice lattes are already coming out, so it's only a couple of weeks. Trust me on this.
1 week before I open up the 31 Days of Horror group. 1 week.
And already.
This is game and is out there at the perfect time. And I'm so happy that I was able to finally see it. I've been looking forward to it for so long. And so happy I could come and talk to you two chaps about this movie, because God damn it, I don't know two bigger full moon marks in my life. So I was extremely happy about this. So let's go ahead and take a short break. We're gonna give a thumbs up to Subspecies 5 Bloodrise, and when we come back, we'll chat with the chatters and bullshit a little bit and say goodbye. What do you guys think?
It's your show, sure. What am I going to say?
Why the fuck not, right? Shut up, Eric.
Got me talking like Sylvester Stallone for some reason.
Hey, I'm not used to doing this live gimmick. This is new to me, goddammit.
Yeah, you're a true professional.
A consummate professional.
That's right.
Consummate.
You've
never seen a professional like I have. So anyways, let's go ahead. We'll be right back after this short chill.
Yes.
This is Astro Radio Z, and we love talking about movies with you. If you are looking for more episodes and want to become part of the show, go to patreon.com/Astro Radio Z and become a monthly subscriber to have access to 100 plus bonus episodes of content. Jump in. Make Astro Radio Z yours and become a Patreon subscriber at patreon.com/Astro Radio Z.
I ain't lying, baby.
Welcome back. We lost Dan. Dan, I think, went to go take a squirt or maybe watch Subspecies 5 yet again. Scott, what you been up to lately, brother? Have you seen anything decent lately other than Subspecies 5?
Oh God, I can't remember. Yeah, I mean, I've seen a few things here. Hold on a second while I can try to bring them up if I can think of it. I wasn't watching too many movies for the last few years, and now because I've had a lot of issues with like migraines and surgeries and stuff like that, but I've been able to get back into things. So things I've watched lately that I really liked. Let's see here. I finally got around to seeing Yes, Madam with Michelle Yeoh and Cynthia Rothrock,
what is that? I've never heard of this one.
It's like the first film that had Cynthia Rothrock in it and Michelle Yeoh as really action stars, and of course, and it focuses on like these two other characters really that are kind of like these mismatched thieves, and it's a comedy, but really the focus is on Yeoh and Rothrock, and they're great. I also saw got to see Late Spring, which was the first film from it's been a hole in my like cinematic we all have like holes, like, oh, I still haven't explored this director or that director. So I got to see Late Spring, which was my first film from Ozu, and I'm going to be seeing all the rest of them because I was just obsessed with. You've seen it, so yeah, I've seen it. Like the next week, I just kept on going back to how simplistically beautiful the whole thing was.
Yeah.
So yeah, Late Spring was amazing. So yeah, as you could say, I watch a lot of different types of movies. So probably the two best ones I've seen in the last month are those Late Spring and Yes, Madam.
I'm going to check out Yes, Madam for sure. I haven't even heard of that one. I'm glad you recommended that one. Late Spring, though, that movie, there was such a different pacing at that time with Japanese cinema, and the dramas, especially that one, because I believe it's not like back then there was a lot of like samurai period pieces and stuff like that. That was set in contemporary Japan, and it was just like if I remember correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it's a drama about a couple. Correct?
Well, I think that's Tokyo Story. It's about a father and daughter, and the daughter, and it's traditional Japanese society that you just marry. You have to. Your daughter has to get married. You have to. It's the responsibility. You marry the women off, get married, and they find a good person to marry, and you marry them off. And they have this. She has this wonderful relationship with her father, who's been widowed, probably during the war, and it's about how they have this wonderful relationship, but he feels a pressure to make sure that she is set up in society and everything, even though they have this nice relationship and she's not really looking forward to it. It's really just as simple as that, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's one of those things that manages to take the smallest gestures and the smallest shots and everything, and says just a ton about it. So it's one of those films where you watch it and you can't stop thinking about it afterwards.
Yeah.
So
it is a wonderful movie. Wonderful. Dan, what have you seen or done lately that has been good?
Shit. I sit here most of the times and just stare at the wall and listen to black metal in the evenings lately.
That sounds pretty fucking awesome. Did you listen to the Black Braid, the new Black Braid album?
Yeah, I checked that out. I've been going through my backlog ever since Dungeon Siege. When I went up there and played at Dungeon Siege, I've got a shit ton of tapes and records because these nerds don't listen to CDs, so I just got a bunch of tapes. So I've been trying to go through that backlog. No, I've been going through the Highlander TV series again.
Really?
Yeah, movies just kind of. I'll watch a movie every now. I go through cycles. It's coming up on October, so I'll end up watching movies again. But haven't really watched that many movies lately, unless it's something my son hasn't seen, and then we'll watch it. But I've been going through the Highlander TV series for whatever reason. I mean, just Highlander, and it's not Forever Night. So I mean, waiting until I get done with Highlander, and I'll go back through Forever Night.
Sure.
Played Mortal Shell. That game was bad as shit.
That game is hard as fuck.
It's honestly it's a lot easier than any of the other Souls games. I mean, that was a cakewalk once you figure out the play style of it.
Yeah.
The basics of Mortal Shell: do a run and jump, and as soon as you come down, harden. And so you'll hit them and you'll freeze. Well, then you stay frozen. When they hit you again, it registers another hit on them, so you basically get 2 free hits. But other than that, it feels like it's a huge game, but it's not. Like,
yeah, it's a pretty short one. It's a small one, right?
I appreciated that, but the aesthetic, that game, the splits I do with Aerithright Throne. If you like the Saragost Aerithright Throne annual October album that we come out with, that game is those albums. The aesthetic of that game is so beautiful. Holy shit. And it's got an Atrium Carceri soundtrack. So if you're into the cinematic dark ambient type stuff, it's just absolutely exquisite. But other than that, I haven't watching Highlander or the Transformers, the old Transformers G1.
Nice. Did you see the new Transformers movie, The Day of the Beast?
Not yet.
or whatever it was called, the War of the Beasts, or whatever, the Beasts, or whatever.
I never even saw Bumblebee.
You should. That's the best
one. Bumblebee was actually good, and I don't like most of the Transformers movies, but I liked Bumblebee.
Listen, you people, I watched Hornet, for God's sake. I had this crazy idea.
A true mark.
Derek told me, hey, well, people like the bottom rack. I love the bottom rack. Why don't you do some more? So I did a Mockbuster Summer again, and we watched Hornet. No, I didn't see Bumblebee. I watched Hornet, for God's sake. You see what I do for you people in the chat? This is what I did. Ruined it.
Oh, I loved it. I love the fact that you guys came back with, and Mark had told me months prior that you guys were going to do another Mockbuster Summer. I didn't even request one out of you guys. You just got out of the blue. It's like, hey, Derek, do you mind if we basically torture ourselves for another episode out of the kindness of our hearts? Like, I figured Mark would just use it as a spoiler room episode. He's like, does Astro Radio Z want it? It's like, yeah, that's part of the fucking canon at this point. Mockbuster Summer. I hope you guys do this in perpetuity. If you guys haven't, like, by the time we all die, if you haven't covered all of Asylum's Mockbusters, we failed. We failed as a fucking podcast.
I want to do more, and life just keeps getting in the way, and shit happens, and then just thinking about getting the old crew together. I got another playlist of more to do, that just where we could subject ourselves to it. So for anybody just wondering, like, honestly, the highlight of my editing career and just me firing on all cylinders was probably the Atlantic Rim episode of Mockbuster Summer, that bottom rack. That was me firing on all cylinders with the slow motion, the transitions, and everything.
That shit was so good.
But yeah, I am so boring right now. It's interesting hearing y'all talk about watching Japanese cinema. I watched Godzilla.
I've been boring for years, so. I've been boring for years, so this is just me coming out of my boring shell, actually. So
you're talking about Japanese cinema. I haven't played Ghost of Tsushima.
Oh,
holy shit! That game is an Akira Kurosawa game. It's beautiful.
Oh, cool.
It's so amazing.
It's got a Kurosawa mode, dude. You can go in the options and turn it on, and it turns this grainy black and white shit. You can play the game like that. It's not really that much fun, but you can do it. It's really cool. But it's got a photo mode because the game is just a living work of art. And Absolutely. So basically every scene, it's like you operate the camera in this movie, because anytime you rotate it, any scene you go, take a camera and you can change the weather, and you can just change like the animations to it and how you want it stuff. It's a pure work of art, dude. You'd appreciate it. Even if you don't game, you would appreciate looking at it. It is a beautiful game.
I completely agree. I got lost in that game last year. I played through it, and I 100%ed that motherfucker because I was so in. Like from the get-go, it goes, do you want to play in the Kurosawa mode? Like, it's part of the intro as you play the game. So you turn it on.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, this is fucking badass, but this game is beautiful and so vibrant and so colorful. It's like you'd be a fucking moron to play it in that mode. Be an absolute fucking dum-dum, because you'd be missing out on just the grandeur of that game. Plus, you get to be a fucking samurai. It's basically Red Dead Redemption for samurais.
That's it. It is exactly that. And you can sit there and you get to swipe your sword after you kill people, and you can be like, you can just swipe your thumb across the touchpad, and he'll be like, and then he sheathes it back. It's so cool.
So badass. So badass.
You can probably tell I haven't played a game since the original Xbox, so I'm like, really? You can do that now.
Old school, man. You and my son would get along great, Mr. Retro Edgelord. My son is an old soul. The last game he just conquered Bad Fur Day on N64. We went to
nice.
We have a Southeast Game Exchange in Greenville. It's a 2-hour drive north of here, and it's nirvana for game nerds. So anyway, we went there, and he ended up picking up a copy of Conker's Bad Fur Day, so he actually ran through that. So yeah, that's what we do.
So we got Mikey K, who's a big-time fan of Astro Radio Z.
I know the name. I recognize.
Yep. He says you do not look like what he thought or he had pictured, Dan. What do you have to say about this?
How am I supposed to look? What the hell am I supposed to look like?
Yeah, Mikey K, explain yourself. What do you mean? How did you picture Daniel Edenfield?
Yeah, what did you think I was supposed to look like or something? I mean, what is it? The glorious dulcet tones, or is it a haircut? Not quite sure.
I bet you he thought you looked like Ernest.
I wish. You know what I mean? Yeah, probably considering all the random references and one-liners that I spit out. Yeah, I would completely understand. It'd be fine. From bottom rack. I don't know. Just always heard the voice. Oh, goddamn! You listen to the bottom rack? Wow, a listener! Ha! You see that? I got a listener. Somebody actually listens.
Well, you did have long hair for a long time, didn't you?
Yeah. I had it for a long time, actually, probably about 10 years that I kept it long. I mean, I pulled it off, and I kept having it as long as I did. And this is no lie. Biggest ego boost ever is just because my favorite wrestler of all time is Triple H. So the biggest ego boost I ever got was I walk up and just this random chick, fine ass girl, walks up, just a black chick out of nowhere. It's like, excuse me, you look like Triple H. And I was like, what? And she was like, yeah, it was a chick at Walmart. She actually worked there. And she was like, I said, you look like Triple H, you look like that wrestler. Man, shit, I was on cloud nine.
You're walking around like this for the rest of the fucking night.
Let me get a wheelbarrow to carry my balls around. Yeah. That's right. Well, it kept happening. And it was mostly black chicks that would say it. It had nothing to do with nothing. I just happened to kind of notice. So, I mean, I was starting to feel like, well, maybe I just need to go across the aisle for some dates. But then some dudes at Walmart, like younger kids, were probably like 18 or 19 or whatever, were in a checkout lane, the self-checkout, and I hear them walk by, and I just heard somebody almost like, man, look, Shawn Michaels, like Triple H, over there at the register, and you hear say talking about the game, whatever. So I waited until he looked, and when he turned around and looked, he looked at me. He looked at me, and I was like, and I did that, and they're like, oh, see it all, like that.
You know what you should have done? You should have, once it started happening over and over again, you should have got Triple H's like theme song on your phone. So the moment you walk in, you just hit that fucking thing, and it's like you're walking down the goddamn ramp, right?
I had it because we were at work at the county when I was there. They were repairing the roof and stuff, had a roofing crew up top, and sure enough, somebody up there. I was walking into the office one day, and I could hear him up there. It's something about the game, like that. And so one day I came because, God, they were working on that roof for fucking ever. So during Halloween, one of the times, and like I had been working out good, like I had been doing my fasting routine and working out to get performance weight again, just to see what I could do. So sure enough, when I went to work, I put on my DX shirt. It was actually my son, so it was a little smaller, so it was tighter. Got my sledgehammer, and I showed up to work, had my hair down, and I start walking up to the building like that. And the guy was like, "It's the game!" And I did one of those, pure ego-driven madness. It's fun. But now I got tired of the long hair.
I don't have long hair anymore because I'm going bald. Let's just be honest about it. We talked about this before we got on the air because Scott's got the luscious locks now. Out of all of us, as we age, we've been doing this podcast over 10 years now, guys.
God, get out of here.
Oh, God, yeah.
It cannot have been that long.
It's been that long. I don't think you've been on it that long, but I
don't think I've been on this.
Yes, you
have. I been on?
Dude,
really?
We've been on this from the first year we did this.
Really?
I jumped in right after the Cyborg episode because that's when I reached out to Derek. Was after y'all did Cyborg, so y'all had been doing it for a little bit before I jumped in.
I know that I'm coming back into slowly getting back in there, very slowly. And one of the reasons I was like, yes, absolutely to this is that I feel like I have more trust, and it feels more like home than most places on the net. So I appreciate being back.
Tell me about it.
I appreciate that. So to kind of round this out, the things I've been watching, I don't watch a lot of movies anymore, guys. I'm kind of with Dan. I haven't, other than stuff I got to watch for the podcast in worst movies ever, which could be driving me to not watch movies anymore. That fucking worst movies ever podcast. And where can you listen to that podcast, Mr. Daniel Enfield?
I don't know, Derek. Where could you listen to that podcast?
Patreon. Anyways, okay, so I'm sorry, I had to. The only movie of any note that I've watched lately on my own freely, and I saw it twice in the theater in last week, was the Barbie movie.
Barbie, yeah, I liked it. It was good.
It was fucking amazing.
Really clever
Fucking
movie.
Amazing. Like the first time, it was funny. I was on a shoot, and the way the shoot was scheduled, we had one person. I had to drive an hour and a half and make call time at 6 a.m. Then the person was there. Our talent came in, and we shot her out. We shot him out in 15 minutes. He was in and out. Then our next one didn't show up until 2. So we had like 6 hours of nothing. Nothing.
Damn.
So everyone's like, you want to go see at 11? You want to go see the Barbie movie? It was the weirdest experience.
Is that slow for you?
Yeah, well, no, it's just how they scheduled our shoot day. That's how it goes sometimes. So we went to a local theater and saw Barbie, and I was like, it is meticulously made from a production design standpoint, almost entirely practical, all done on set. Very little special, like digital special effects in this thing. It is wildly inventive. Absolutely not a kid's movie in any way. And fucking Ryan Gosling as Ken, the role of his fucking life. He owns this movie.
He's never bad in a movie. I don't think I've ever seen him be bad in a movie. He's great. And Margot Robbie is fantastic. I loved the whole cast, to be honest with you. I thought it was this is a movie that has a lot of meaning and everything, and I think it's gonna be. There's a reason why people keep going back. Not only is it fun, not only is it inventive, I think it really has a lot of great meaning for a lot of people. So, and a lot of message, and I can see a lot of really shitty people getting really angry at it. So
that's because it's pointing the finger directly at them.
Exactly.
Think about how often do we actually get a decent, good movie to come out? I mean, especially about an IP. You know, just trying to think about. I'm seriously trying to comb back to, like, other than Subspecies 5 was the last new movie I watched. Maybe Knives Out, which was incredible.
Yeah, it's a good one.
But I honestly don't know if I've watched anything new since that like hit streaming. Hey, I'm such a hermit. I just watch old shit. So yeah, like
the Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, the new one was good.
Multiverse,
yeah, it was pretty good.
How movies solve all the problems nowadays. It's multiverse. We just crossed HP multiverse.
I'm about multiverse out, but I'm about multiverse out these days. But those movies and Everything Everywhere All at Once were the two that really seemed to do something really inventive with it. Otherwise, it's just gotten too much.
Well, it's a cheap gimmick, right? It's a way to not have to write yourself into a corner and figure out what to do. You just go, oh, well, that's just this other world, which I believe. And I'm going to end the conversation on this. I recently watched The Flash, and that movie. Oh God, I'm with you. I really did not enjoy that movie at all. And the director coming out and saying, "Oh, the special effects was, is purposely looks bad. It looks terrible.
It looks awful. It looks
terrible.
It looks after all this thing and saying, oh, but we're keeping him in the role because the buzz is really good and the movie is so good and we're going to do this. And I was still, even though I haven't didn't enjoy many of the Snyder films, I liked the first Wonder Woman. I liked Aquaman. I thought it was a goofy, fun movie. And the Flash comes out, and I'm like, I was disgusted with it. It was they brought back Michael Keaton as Batman, and I didn't care.
Yeah,
the entire movie, I just didn't care. And I think a lot of it, to be honest, let's face it, I'm getting older, y'all getting older. The movies aren't made for us anymore. We're not in that demo anymore. So they're not being made for us. But so a lot of the newer movies, I'm really kind of lukewarm on a lot of the recent movies. So, I mean, a lot of them, I like them okay. Most of them I don't. But this is crap.
They're being made for the writer's room. They're being made for Scott. So they're being made for... No, my Flash was John Wesley Shipp. So I mean,
yeah.
Let's stick with that one. Let's close the door on the Snyderverse and fucking the Flash and everything. In this episode of Astro Radio Z, thanks everybody that showed up and hung out with us. Thank you, Dan, and thank you, Scott, for coming back. I love you guys.
Thank you so much.
We'll do this more.
I want to cry. Let's
please promise to do this more.
Well, I mean, you
lured
me off to some hotel room saying you bought the motel or whatever. You lured me out in the middle of nowhere. So I mean,
that's a conversation for another time, Mr. Daniel Edenfield. We'll get to that soon enough. So we're at the stage of the show where my guest show the fuck out of you, Mr.
Scott.
Daniel Edenfield.
No,
chill.
All right, fine.
Right. What were you gonna say? What'd you get so goddamn excited?
I wanted to get Scott. Come on, shill me, baby, shill me.
All right.
I mean, I haven't been doing much. You can find me on Facebook and stuff like that, where I tend to piss people off, unfortunately. But I haven't been doing much. You'll see my little name here in the corner. It says Movieocrity. That was my old show. That's the website, movieocrity.com. You'll notice that there hasn't been any recent stuff happening, but maybe soon. I'm hoping. I haven't done anything in a long time, but I've been slowly but surely coming out of the cocoon. So hopefully soon, maybe Movieocrity isn't as dead as we think. Hey,
I hope that's the case. Scott, I've always been a big supporter of you. I love your voice. About cinema in general. The segments you did, the aborted Scott segment of Astro Radio Z, where we had
about that.
Dude, I loved those so much. And I know I've said this to you in the past. I hope you start making another podcast because I love listening to your perspective on film. So please
for real.
Make it happen, Scott. Please.
I'm for real.
Thank you.
One can only handle so much. Does the cover look like? Did you get what's on the cover? How's the soundtrack? It's badass. It's badass. It's cool. Scott actually
did you get the idea that Dan's making fun of himself right now?
Scott, yeah. You actually do your homework. You got Movieocrity and stuff, and I pop up. Woohoo! Hey, take the cover. That's pretty cool. Dan brings you bring your own energy to this, and it's absolutely valid. So, and I mean that, I mean that 100, and I'm not joking. I mean that 100%. So, don't sell yourself short, buddy. Mediocrity, though, you're the intelligence of it. You bring.
Please. Oh, please. Okay, well, thank you, though.
You help reflect the bullshit that I talk about anyway. So, when I get you and Mark, when I can distract y'all, then I look smarter. Because
how's that strat working for you?
Because they talk about Scott's like, well, look at the camera. They'll bring the camera up. The way they positioned this shot, it zooms in, and you really get a feel for the emotions of the scene. And then Mark's like, yeah, because I saw this one time and they do it. And I just get to come and be like, oh yeah, totally. Absolutely. I know, really, I know. I felt the same way about that scene. Yeah. See?
You're like that person when somebody comes up to you and says, it goes, "Oh, hey, I haven't seen you in a long time," and then in your brain you're like, "I don't know you." Yeah, and you're like, "Yeah,
how the hell are you, man? It's good to see you, man. You doing all right?" Shit, I know it's been forever. Yeah, I know. Yeah, you remember.
Yeah,
how you been, man?
And then after you leave, you go to your you say to your partner or your friends, like, who the fuck was that?
I try to bait them. I'll try to give them leading questions so they end up giving me their name so that maybe I could, because I have no clue. Especially now, I'm terrible with names. So I'll just flat out admit to people, it's like, I you were really cool, and I remember your face, but I cannot remember your name. Please don't be mad.
Yeah, as you get older, humility,
that happens.
Gets to us all. Yeah, you're just like, okay, dude, can you refresh me? You feel like an idiot for about 5 minutes, and then it goes away.
Dude, yeah. After meeting so many people, like especially in Massachusetts, all these people that I met, it's like, sorry, I would recognize your name on Facebook, but in person, it's like, man, it's wonderful to meet you. Thank you so much.
Having said that, Dan,
you could just do what I do and be legally blind and say, I can't tell what you people look like.
And he watches movies for a living.
Yeah. And I watch movies. That's also a great thing. And says like, Scott, I think your opinion's full of shit. Like, what do you want from me? I'm legally blind. I can't see these things. Zoo? Are you kidding me? Zoo? I barely could see those people.
Save it for a really bad movie. Be like, before I watch this, I could see fine.
Wow, that would be the harshest fucking critique of anything I've ever heard in my entire life. Having said that, Mr. Daniel Enfield, the floor is yours. What do you have to show, my friend?
God, nothing. I just sit around and do music, honestly. Basically, you could find my label, obsidianrelic.bandcamp.com. It seems lately the most popular stuff I do is really barbaric, bombastic dungeon synth as Saragost or fantasy stuff as Valen. But again, just Obsidian Relic on Bandcamp. Look it up. You'll find it. That's really about all I've got going on right now. Who knows?
There's always something brewing in the dungeon.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, there's a couple. We got to try some live shows coming up, and then probably the Dungeon Siege next year. So yeah, just go there. You'll find hardly ever on Facebook. So just basically go to Bandcamp and just send me a message there. I'll at least get the email and respond.
And of course, folks, every other Thursday night here, we moved the time to 7 p.m. tonight for Dan because he's a boy that has a bedtime, a strict bedtime, and he's got to get to bedtime. That's why we're wrapping it up here. But usually 9 o'clock Central Standard Time every other Thursday night here on Twitch, YouTube. And we'll see. Facebook might go away. We'll see if that's going to stick around. But at least on Twitch and YouTube, every other Thursday night, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, you'll get new episodes of Astro Radio Z. And of course, if you want more Astro Radio Z in your life, you want to hear this. What is this podcast you talk about, Derek?
Where would I go for more?
Derek, where can I go to get this Worst Movies Ever podcast? I'm glad you asked that. You go to
I got an elevator.
And you can go there and get it. Hey, I keep my Patreon real cheap. If you want to go there, support it, and get some new podcasts every month, that's where you go. Otherwise, that's it. We're done.
I'm on it. I'm on the Patreon, and I'm poor. So there, you have no excuse, guys. Come on.
Well, having said that, thank you, everybody, for showing up. And thank you guys again from the bottom of my heart for coming here. It felt like old times bringing you really guys on. I absolutely loved it. And let's say good night to the people.
Good night to the people.
Good night to the people.
Adios.
Bye, y'all.
Oh, that's good shit, man.